This is not an April Fool's joke, despite the date on the calendar and the ship that you see here on the screen, the legendary tier German aircraft carrier Manfred von Richthofen, which was put into World of Warships Legends, the April 2026 update. It's available as, I believe, a free bureau project, so anybody can get this ship as long as they can progress through the chain of missions on the bureau project, which I do think require wins in the German tech tree CV. So you probably got to have all of those to obtain this thing. Full disclosure, of course, for those of you who may not know, I don't like CVs as a class in World of Warships Legends. I don't think they add anything positive to the gameplay at all. I don't really think they belong. And I was not looking forward to this ship arriving in the game because I do enjoy playing at Legendary tier. For one of the main reasons why is because there's not a lot of CVs there. Previously, we only had the Midway and Hakuryu. Now, with this thing, there might be more CVs in the Legendary tier, so I kind of wanted to know what will I be facing in a month or two when everybody's completed this Bureau project and brings this thing out onto the high seas. Well, of course, we ran out of fuel there on our first flight with our, I believe, torpedo bombers. It's been a while since I've played CVs and wasn't quite used to the fuel limitations on this particular one, but don't worry, we're going to get things going here, and this will serve as a wonderful sequel to the video I made on August von Parseval years ago called It's Raining Citadels. Here we have It's Raining Citadels Part 2, in spite of the fact that we're dropping torpedo bombers at a bow-on destroyer and we're not going to hit him. That's alright though, we're going to get all these planes shot down courtesy of PG Rapids, who's also playing the Manfred von Richthofen for the enemy team, and his fighter plane squadron that he deployed in our face. It worked. Ours did not. In fact, I don't think we're going to get a single one of his planes shot down at all this game, but judging by the results that he gets on the enemy team, well, he probably shot down a lot of ours. Obviously, the fighter planes can be effective if you deploy them correctly, but you have to be less of a potato than I am. Now, it doesn't matter, though, if you're a potato at CVs or not when it comes to these AP dive bombers. Take a look at the GK. Somebody asked me the other day, can the Manfred von Richthofen Citadel the GK? Yes, in fact, it can Citadel it 3 times for 11,000 damage, and I'm pretty sure that there's practically no ship you're going to find at the Legendary tier that these AP dive bombers cannot Citadel. We're going to go through the specs on this CV, of course, in a moment here. We're going to drop the Hindenburg next, though, and you'll see right here another couple of Citadels on the Hindenburg. 3 more. That's 6 in the span of one plane squadron right there, and we had 0 damage. Now we have 20k. Citadels from the sky. Man, these guys should have just been flooding the port or the starboard side of the ship to angle the deck against the sky, shouldn't they? Counterplay doesn't exist. Anyway, the commander build, I should show you that as we position our CV south of this Alpha, or Charlie cap rather. The GK has gone down. Hindenburg looks like he's about to beach himself stationary, which theoretically should just make this drop a little bit easier. There we go, dropping from a different height as well. And still 2 more Citadels to go with the initial 6 that we got. 27,000 damage instead of 20. These bombers certainly don't feel good if you're the kind of ship with a Citadel. In fact, the only sort of ship that might not have to worry about this particular CV too much is destroyers. I don't think we're going to get a hit on any destroyer in this game. There's only 1 on the enemy team, but we're not going to land a torpedo or anything like that. However, I do want to point out that we have 33,000 damage, 10 Citadels, and yeah, in the span of however long it took to drop those bombs. Anyway, as we position our CV again and fly our planes out to where the rest of the enemies are, I'll show you the build I've got here. For the mod selection, we have got the Flight Control Mod 1, we've got Air Groups Mod 2, Concealment Mod, and then in the 4th mod slot, Air Groups Mod 3. The commander is the free-to-play German CV commander, Hans Geisler with Swirsky, and the IJN free-to-play CV commander as his inspirations. That guy gives the torpedoes a little bit of extra speed and buffs the speed on the CV itself. Swirsky, of course, buffs the concealment. So this build is going to be impacting all the stats that I read to you as we get our second kill of the game with our torpedo bombers against that cruiser. Gonna line up also here for a torpedo drop on the Louisiana, but once again dropping bow on, and we're gonna miss. I think we could have probably hit him with one if we had just stayed in that drop a little longer to tighten up the angle, but it is what it is. Things are going well for the blue team. Reds have lost 4 ships, and we've secured Alpha. We're about to secure Charlie. They're about to only have Bravo. Pre-dropping now so we don't lose too many of the planes. But anyway, as we continue our flight toward the enemy team, we'll go over the specs. So the Manfred von Richthofen has 65,300 HP, and it's also got a relatively large amount of armor too, for that matter. The flight deck has a 50mm plate on it, and the belt armor, which extends pretty much all the way around the CV, is like 145 millimeters. Plus, it's got an icebreaker on the bow. The bow plating itself is only 19, so of course it can be overmatched by a lot of things, but it's got a 60 millimeter icebreaker belt at the waterline. It's even got an icebreaker a little bit on the stern. Doesn't quite go all the way around it, but I suspect if you're angled in this CV and somebody shoots at you, you're going to have no problem bouncing a lot of battleship shells, cruiser shells as well. By the way, I didn't know anything could really Citadel the Louisiana from the top, but apparently Manfred von Richthofen can do it at least once. So yeah, survivability on this CV, probably not too bad. As for the aircraft, which are the main selling point here, I suppose, we've got the dive bombers. You've seen both the dive and torpedo bombers in action. The dive bombers with this build have hit points of 2,621, a maximum speed of 214 knots. The attack flight size for each drop is 4 planes, although each squadron is 12. So theoretically, you get 3 drops in one flight, but of course, planes get shot down sometimes, so you probably don't get all that many. They're detectable at 9.3 km with this build. Each plane drops 2 bombs for a total of 8 bombs each drop. The bombs do a maximum AP damage of 3,060, and they have up to 299.1 millimeters of pen. That 299, call it 300 millimeters, that should probably be enough to get through the deck armor of practically every ship you're going to see. And then once you get through the deck armor, I think the only thing you're going to be facing is the plate on the top of the Citadel, which I can't imagine is going to be more than like 100 millimeters on most things. In fact, I think some things barely have any armor on the top of the Citadel, since those are mostly designed to, stop shells from coming in at sort of a sideways angle. But yeah, I think these bombs can pen pretty much anything, and Citadel quite a bit. The maximum flight range of the bombers is 32 kilometers, as we found out early on in this battle. There are 18 aircraft in total on the deck, and they restore in 64 seconds with this build. I think that's influenced by the mod selection and the skills, of course. Base restoration time is 75 seconds for the AP dive bombers. 64 seconds, though? Pretty fast. I never felt like I was really in danger of being fully deplaned at any point in this particular battle. As for the torpedo bombers, they've got, I think, a little bit more HP at 2,785. They launch, there's 18 of the planes, of course. There are 4 per attack flight, or 3 per attack flight, rather. Forgive me there. And each of the 3 planes launches 1 torpedo for a total of 3 every drop. The maximum simulated damage on these torpedoes, especially with that IJN inspiration, 4,752. Not maybe a lot of damage when you take into account the torpedo reduction, but I think there's a couple of drops in this battle where these torps did 9-10k, so it's not like they don't hurt. And also, I'd say they're really easy to land on things. If we had more of an opportunity to use them against destroyers, I think they'd be pretty good at hitting those, because when you drop them, they travel in the water at 61 knots, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an expert on all the CV stats, but that may be the fastest torpedoes of any airdrop torps in the entire game. 61 knots is decent. Well, no, it's not really decent speed for sea-launched torpedoes off of a ship. It's on the lower end. But for airdrop torpedoes, I'd say that's really fast, and that makes it really easy to line up the drops. I am totally confident that you can hit destroyers if you play your cards right, but I think most of the time you probably spend the battle harassing these poor surface ships and dealing critical, unhealable damage to them from the sky that they have no way to counter. So probably that's what you're going to end up doing, but the torpedo bombers, well, they're useful, as are the AP dive bombers. 14 Citadels so far. I don't think we're going to get any more. Montana's about to go down, and then it's just our fellow CC PG Rapids left in his own Manfred von Richthofen. I think he probably ended up doing more damage than I did in this battle. I know he ends up with the high caliber and Confederate medals. I don't end up with any of those, and I know he shot down a number of my planes. I don't think we shot down any of his. This thing has secondaries too, by the way. Haven't built into them, don't really intend to, but they have a range of 5.5 kilometers base. They reload in 3.2 seconds. It's got 24 105 millimeter guns as the secondaries. They only pen 20 millimeters of armor though, and they have a 5% fire chance. So, yeah, you may not really want to spec into them with those numbers. AA defenses, I'm sure they're great. It's a CV. Maneuverability, 32.5 knot top speed, reasonably fast, I'd say. But Manfred von Richthofen now has the distinct honor of having the largest turning circle radius in the game at 1,200 meters, which is absolutely absurd. But, well, I mean, we've talked about the armor already. If you can move the rudder, which has a 16.4 second rudder shift time, and angle the armor, in spite of that large turning circle, I think you can angle pretty well in this thing. Who knows? Concealment, 11.7 kilometers with the concealment module and with Swirsky as one of the inspirations. So my thoughts on Manfred von Richthofen, well, I never would have gotten it if I weren't a CV. I don't intend to complete the Bureau project or play this thing very much. As I said to open up the game, I don't think CVs add anything positive to the gameplay experience, and I think this thing's proliferation at the legendary tier is going to make the tier worse overall. However, if you are a fan of CVs, particularly the German ones, this to me seems like the pinnacle of all German CVs. I've seen some speculation that it will suck. I don't think it does. This is not maybe the best game you're ever going to see played in this CV. I'm sure other players can get a lot more out of it than I can. But the fact that the AP dive bombers are doing as much damage as we've done with them, and the torpedoes are fairly decent, well, I'd say this is probably a pretty strong CV. We've got 11 torpedo hits, 3 kills, 14 Citadels in this battle for a total of 104,000 damage. Not exactly the biggest numbers ever, but I think a decent indication or a decent idea of how this CV performs. And so those of you who were curious about it and want to, pursue the Bureau project, don't let my disdain for aircraft carriers stop you. They're a playable unit in the game, so if you want to play them, don't let anybody tell you not to, even somebody like me who absolutely thinks they don't belong. That is the end of this battle on April Fool's Day for Manfred von Richthofen. Hope you liked this video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing I'll see you next time. Goodbye.